After the Avengers were thought lost to the might of the deadly being known as Onslaught, the heroes have returned in force with a new team, with big names like Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man, mainstays such as Scarlet Witch and Vision, and even some newcomers like the young heroes Justice and Firestar. The newest members have gotten mixed reactions from the public thus far, especially Justice, who was recently injured in a fight due to a mistake on the part of the hero known as the Black Knight. Yet most attention is turned to the Vision and Scarlet Witch, who have dissolved their marriage, and Wanda has been seen with Simon Williams, also known as Wonder Man. Given that Simon's brain patterns were the basis of Vision's mind, gossip and speculation has begun to run rampant about this strange love triangle. This has put stress on the new couple, but they are Avengers and have work to do. After saving the day, the heroes find themselves hounded by the press, who have gotten relentless when it comes to all things Avengers lately, much to the team's annoyance. From his secret headquarters, Ultron watches his foes, amused at their public flogging. How troubled they must be, but it's only the beginning for them. By the time they realize what the android has planned this time, it will be far too late. Unseen by the robot, he is observed as well by a mysterious figure, who chastises Ultron for always getting ahead of himself. Just like the Avengers, Ultron has no idea what is coming. The Wakanda Design Group plant in Long Island has one purpose and one only: to build and supply the Quinjets used by the Avengers. In recent weeks, 3 such aircraft have been destroyed, so the facility has been working relentlessly to provide replacements. But today is a different story entirely. A figure moves silently, swiftly. He betrays no sign of emotion concerning the massacre around him, and yet inside, his soul boils. T'Challa only came to New York for a brief visit, but now he must avenge those of his people who died overseas. He finds the culprit and recognizes his foe instantly. She's back. At the same time, in the Avengers mansion, Justice and Firestar are moving in some of their things. It's still a lot to get used to joining the Avengers. Today the team is having a press conference. The reporters ask about Vision, Wonder Man, and Scarlet Witch. The latter two are out on lunch right now, but Vision is supposed to be here today, so his current location is a mystery. Tony's face betrays a worried look about the whole matter. At lunch, Wanda performs at a local restaurant. Simon cheers her on and comments on how great a dancer she is, but she can tell there's something on his mind. Williams is still shaken by a recent confrontation with his brother, the Grim Reaper, which ended with his brother being taken by forces unknown. However, before they can talk about it, Wanda spots Vision's human alter ego spying on them. Back at the mansion, the press conference is not going well, as Cap, Tony, and Thor all chafe at the journalist's assertive questioning. This event is interrupted when Janet bursts into the room, begging for help. She explains that Hank Pym has been kidnapped, and based on the description of a witness and readings from visual sensors in Hank's lab, Ultron was the most likely culprit. This is enough to send the Avengers into full alert. Vision appears and promises Janet they will rescue Hank, while Jarvis informs the team of a break-in happening at the Wakanda Tech Group facility. Cap has Justice contact Simon and Wanda and orders everyone to meet there to investigate. Arriving in no time at all, they rush in, expecting to find their longtime enemy, but instead are greeted by a being named Alchema, a robot based off the mind of Hawkeye's late wife, Mockingbird. Wasp immediately attacks, assuming she is working with Ultron, something Alchema denies. Yet she does know he has big plans for the Avengers. The rest of the team attacks, but the robot insists she doesn't even like Ultron and actually wants to help. However, the Avengers have dealt with Alchema before. They know she is dangerous, and even though she may disagree with Ultron, she is no ally of theirs. Unfortunately, just like Ultron, she is also made of adamantium, and is resistant to the Avengers' attacks, even able to easily shrug off a blow from Mjolnir. As members of the group begin to fall, Firestar knows she has to act. She begins blasting Alchema, putting more and more of her power into the attack. The others urge her to stop, but she doesn't listen, until Black Panther tackles her down. He says she was being brave, but right now they need living Avengers, not noble sacrifices. Cap begins devising a new tactic when Wanda and Simon appear. Scarlet Witch insists she can win this, but Alchema laughs at this. She has shielded herself from Wanda's chaotic magic, or so the android thought. The witch has improved lately too. As the others look on, shocked, Alchema falls to the ground. Wasp demands to know the location of Ultron, and, after some pressure from Wanda, the robot suggests they take a look at CNN. The Avengers watch footage of a devastating attack on a small nation known as Lorenia. The destruction is horrifying and relentless. Hundreds have died. The news crew on site spots a figure in the dust. He sees them too. What's this? A cameraman? How utterly human. The Avengers watch as he raises his hand. They see the first flare of energy. For a while, none of them can bring themselves to speak. Not for some time. Later, the Avengers meet in the Pentagon, reviewing most of the footage in Slorenia. The people desperately mounted a defense with everything they had, including a small army of illegal cybernetic zombies, but to no avail. Ultron slaughtered everyone in sight before announcing the age of machinery beginning here. Unfortunately, the military has not been able to get any information out of Alchema either, who has spent her time in confinement happily humming to herself. Unknown to them, she is emitting an ultrasonic signal they cannot detect, but it reaches far out into the world towards its destined target. The heroes prepare to strike out against Ultron, first by sending a group to investigate Hank's lab. They find wreckage, and Simon comments that this scene is similar to that which was left when his brother was kidnapped, when suddenly they are attacked by an army of Ultron drones made up of his past incarnations. A massive battle begins. Wanda is injured, sending Vision into a rage, but Ultron is ready for this fight, and pretty soon they are all beaten down. A woman witnesses this as Vision, Scarlet Witch, Wonder Man, and Wasp are all taken prisoner. With little other recourse, the Avengers gather with an army of UN troops and a host of Leviathan-class assault platforms. The heroes say little, but they know there will be justice. For Slorenia, and maybe even their friends, they will all be avenged. Back at the mansion, Justice insists on spending his time researching Ultron, in spite of Jarvis's suggestion that the young man rest and focus on his recovery. He's a hero, and he cannot sit idly by while his friends are in danger. Jarvis can't help but be reminded of that very feeling. Deep within the ruins of Slorenia, Ultron stands over his captives, triumphant. The others ask why they have been taken prisoner, and Ultron explains that this group is the closest thing he has to family. It's only fitting that they join him as seeds for a new race, the new masters of this new world. On the surface, a violent battle begins. Casualties are high as Ultron was able to use Slorenia's undead forces to fight on his behalf, but with the Avengers on the scene, our heroes begin to push through. Meanwhile, Ultron knocks out the Scarlet Witch, knowing the mutant is too dangerous to leave conscious, even confined and depowered. Simon is outraged, but there's no use in negotiating with the mad android. Instead, Janet asks what Ultron wants with them, and the robot explains he's always had a preoccupation with making a family. First with Vision, then with Jocasta and Alchema. He admits, tragically, he is no cold, soulless machine. His old plans of simply destroying humanity would have just left him bored, alone and unchallenged. So he has a different plan for a different world. First, he'll have to purge humanity. That'll be easy enough with chemical warfare. Then he'll need the right raw material for his new race, the mechanical equivalent to DNA. And who better than the people standing before him? He'll destroy their bodies, yes, but their minds will live on, broken down and recreated into something so much better. Ultron's speech is interrupted when he detects Black Panther and Firestar getting near his position. He decides to enter the fray himself, surrounding himself in a vehicle and attacking the Avengers. Meanwhile, in a military compound within Virginia, an attack begins. The soldiers are gunned down by invading robots who free Alchema. She urges her rescuers on. After all, they have very important places to be. Back in Slorenia, Ultron gasses Firestar before the others gang up on him. Ultron laughs at this attack and knocks them all down. But the Avengers never give up, and Black Panther is able to impale Ultron in the eye. Knocking the Wakandan back, Ultron remains unfazed. At the mansion, Justice looks over Ultron's past encounter with Daredevil and the android's association with Doom, followed by the villain's battle with the West Coast Avengers. Jarvis checks in on the young hero, but Justice remains focused on the job at hand. He then spots an interesting entry about an unstable form of synthetic vibranium known as Antarctic vibranium, which may be a potent weapon against Ultron's adamantium plating. The battle isn't going well, but there is a flicker of hope. Black Panther opened a hole in Ultron's shielding, and Tony is able to rig up an energy blast that begins overwhelming the android. Ultron retaliates by knocking his attackers away, but Cap is able to pounce on him and impale the android in the face. In spite of this, Ultron insists the blow was nothing. His system begins rebooting to shrug off the damage while Cap dives out of the way and gives the signal. Now it's Thor's turn. As the God of Thunder unleashes his divine fury, Ultron screams out in pain. Ultron is destroyed and the Avengers gather themselves, but Tony knows something is wrong, and sure enough, another stands before them. The captives watch this on the view screen, worried, when Hank begins suffering a mental breakdown, once again blaming himself for all of this. Janet tries to talk him out of it, pointing out that he could never have seen this coming, but Hank says she doesn't know the whole truth. The new Ultron stands before the Avengers and asks who is first, but the heroes are exhausted. More and more Ultron drones emerge, and our heroes realize they are surrounded. The situation quickly turns desperate as the Avengers are overwhelmed and overpowered. Late in the night, Jarvis is woken up when the alarms alert him to Justice leaving the premises. The loyal butler wonders where the young mutant could possibly be going. One of the Ultron drones returns to the captives and starts scanning them, preparing his family for their fate as part of Ultron's new race. As Hank watches Vision being scanned, he finally confesses to something that has been tormenting him for years. Ultron is based off his own mind and psyche. Everything this evil thing has ever done, it all stems from the fact that it was programmed based on Pym's own brain. Janet, realizing this guilt that he's been carrying over all these years, explains much of his behavior after all this time, is left speechless. On the surface, the Avengers begin pushing back, realizing these drones aren't made of real adamantium. There's probably not enough of that material in the world. As they begin smashing their way through the seemingly endless waves of Ultrons, Tony unleashes a massive energy beam. Below the Earth, Ultron has finished scanning Grim Reaper when the Vision is able to escape. Ultron is actually proud of his creation for this, and asks if they are going to have to fight now, but Vision instead offers to talk. After a moment of consideration, the mad android agrees. Vision explains how he and his creator share a lot in common. Lately, Vision has been hurt, and is angry because of it. He's come to realize this is part of love. Love means you can't make the hurt go away. And because of this, he's starting to understand the depth of Ultron's pain. The loneliness, the anger, the lack of purpose. It must be hard on the machine. But he doesn't have to be alone. Vision makes one last offer for Ultron to end this madness, and come to find a place in the world with him. Together. Ultron is shocked, and doesn't know what to say. He reaches out, and strikes. Vision is a fool if he thought that would work. Which he isn't. The android was actually just keeping Ultron busy while he infiltrated his creator's systems, and freed the others. And, with them loose, they get ready to fight their captor. Suddenly, Ultron, we would have words with thee. The Avengers strike with everything they have, but this final version of Ultron proves tough, and is able to stand up to each and every one of them. However, Justice arrives on the scene, and gives Hank a sample of Antarctic vibranium confiscated from AIM. Hank is able to use this to violently smash Ultron into pieces, only stopped when Janet is able to calm him down. With the day saved, the UN moves to secure the facility, while the Avengers leave to get some much-needed rest. As they do so, cheered on by grateful soldiers, a small group of machines move in silence, recovering some of Ultron's data. Alchema is extremely pleased. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is the complete story of Ultron Unlimited. So last year I made a video about my top 10 Ultron stories. At the end of the video I let everyone vote on their favorite story, and I promised I'd make a video on that story that got the most votes. And the winner was Ultron Unlimited. Then of course life started getting in the way, and after delay upon delay of time-sensitive material, we are here a full year later and I'm finally getting around to this. Did I ever mention I have a huge backlog of requests and things like these? Sorry about that. Nevertheless, here we are. This was actually a lot of fun coming back to this story, and looking over it once again, I have come to two easy conclusions. First, I was right to put this on my list of best Ultron stories, and second, I can see why people voted for this one. Because this story is so fun. There's a lot to like here, but I think, by and large, these comics speak for themselves here. Ultron is an unambiguous threat in this story, and the choice to kick things off with him wiping out an entire country serves nicely to illustrate this. This story was part of Avengers Volume 3, a run of comics I've always liked. It marked a transition period for the Avengers and Marvel in general into the modern age, and to me, this story is a perfect example of these changes that were happening. The story retains a lot of the fun and charm of the older comics while also bringing out a lot of the epic action, higher stakes, and darker themes we would see more of in the modern age. It's a good mix and resulted in a phenomenal story overall. The details show a high degree of effort and quality too. I just love how the Ultron army is composed of not only new versions of Ultron, but practically every version of the villain we've seen thus far. It's a great art choice and makes panels like this benefit from a sense of history with the villain, and it gives that little bit of extra detail for fans to appreciate. I also like how this is a very balanced team story. Everyone has something to do, even the guy who was injured, while the existing story arcs are furthered ever so slightly. Yet these comics do a good job of making the story stand out on its own. It tells you everything you need to know without really having to go back earlier in the series to fill in all the blanks. The art style also works well in general to facilitate the story, which really is all you need to ask of it. George Perez and Stuart Immonen do a great job here, but not quite benefiting from the high quality of modern age and not quite retaining the hand-drawn appeal of the older comics. This comic can be a bit overwhelming at times, and it definitely tips into the uncanny valley on some panels. But it is a small problem in an otherwise fantastic story. My only other real complaint is that a lot of great ideas are introduced here, but aren't really as fleshed out as I wish they could have been. Ultron wiping out an entire country, Hank's mind being the basis of Ultron, cybernetic Ultron zombies, and the idea of Ultron converting the people closest to him into a weird robotic family are all great ideas the story touches on but doesn't delve into much. Some comics would later follow up on some of this material, but a lot of this is just really introduced here without being used as much as it could have been. In some ways, this is also a product of this time, as these shorter stories probably made more sense in the late 90s when this comic was made. If the story were made now, I have a feeling it probably would have been a couple of issues longer to better achieve this goal. And my guess is a better story would have come of that. It's not a big deal though, and if the biggest flaw this comic has is that there simply wasn't enough of it, that's a great sign. Astute viewers will no doubt also have noticed this story clearly served as a vague basis for last year's Age of Ultron movie, and I can see why they did that. That being said, I do think Ultron Unlimited actually does a few things better, mainly with how Ultron was so effective and dangerous in this comic, and the drones being composed of past versions of Ultron was cool too. Though obviously the latter is a limitation of film anyways. Even with the cinematic universe, you can't just fit in 17 versions of Ultron into a single movie that also explains his origins. And as for Ultron committing genocide, sure, that thing could have actually been done in the movie, but given how often that sort of thing is relied on in summer blockbusters, I'm actually kind of glad they avoided this as well. Regardless, Ultron Unlimited is a story that gives the villain a lot of credibility as a threat, like when Thanos wiped out half the universe. On those merits to continuity, and with so much more going on for it, it should come to no surprise for you that I'm going to close this review with an easy recommendation. Check out all of Avengers Volume 3 if you like this story. It's a good read, and Kurt Busiek does a great job writing it. Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.